Okay, so I was thinking about something the other day, and I couldn't really stop thinking about it, so now you're gonna have to think about it too. That's just how this works. So I was just, I don't know, going about my day, and I caught myself doing something, and I thought, wait, would I be doing this if I knew that nobody was watching me, that nobody would ever know about it? Like, if it was just completely invisible, just me doing the thing. And the answer was, I'm not sure I would. And that kind of stopped me in my tracks a little bit because that's a bit of a weird thing to realize about yourself, right? Like, you think you're living your life for you, and you think the choices you're making are yours, truly your own. And then you ask that one question, and suddenly you're like, wait, how much of this is actually me, and how much of this is just the performance, the facade? So that's what I'm going to get into today. Not in a way of beating yourself up for living for other people, more so just in an honest way, because I think this question, what would you do if nobody was watching, is one of those questions that tells you a lot about where you actually are versus where you think you are. So here's the thing. I think that most of us, and I really mean most of us, myself included, are walking around with an invisible audience in our heads at all times. Like, there's a version of other people living rent-free in your head that you were constantly performing for. And the wild part about that is these people, they're not even real. Like, it's not actually your friends watching or anyone you know. It's not your family watching. It's this constructed idea of what they would think, what they would say, whether or not they would approve. In that invisible audience, that imaginary crowd is shaping so much of what you do without you even noticing it. The career path you choose, the way you dress, the things you post, the things you don't post, the hobbies you talk about, what you say, the opinions you share out loud, and the ones you keep to yourself because you're not sure that they'll land well. And here's the thing that gets me. Social media obviously plays into this massively. Like, we've built an entire infrastructure for performing our lives and putting on this show for other people, for curating, for showing the highlight reel. And I'm not saying that that's all bad. There's nothing wrong with sharing things that you're proud of. But I think somewhere along the way, a lot of us stop being able to separate the thing that we're doing from the documentation of the thing that we're doing. Like, the experience and the content about the experience kind of merged into one. And now, sometimes I wonder, did I do that thing because I actually wanted to, or because it made a good story, or it made a good post? And that's not an accusation. I ask myself that too, all the time. Okay, so now I want to get into the part that I think is actually the most interesting part of this whole conversation, and that is the things you secretly want, like the desires that you have for your life that you don't really talk about because you're not sure how they'll land, because they don't fit the typical image of somebody your demographic, your age, because they're embarrassing somehow, because some people might just not get it, because it's not what you're supposed to want. Maybe it's something totally simple, like you actually love a certain kind of music that doesn't match your vibe at all, or there's this hobby that you're obsessed with that you never mention because it's not cool enough, or it's too nerdy or whatever. And maybe you want to move somewhere completely different, but you would never say it out loud because your whole life is here and people would think that you're just being dramatic. Or maybe it's even bigger than that. Maybe there's a version of your life, a whole different version, that you think about sometimes and then immediately shut down because it feels too far, too unrealistic, too much of a departure from the story everyone already has about you. Because here's what I've noticed: the desires that have the most shame around them, the ones you hold on to the tightest and show the least, those are usually not random. They're usually pointing at something real and something that you really care about, something that actually matters to you in a pretty deep way. And we walk past them every day because we're too busy managing how we look to actually ask, wait, what do I want? Like, genuinely. With nobody watching, with no story to tell afterwards, with no one to impress or disappoint, what do I actually want? And that question is much harder than it actually sounds. And the answer, if you let yourself really go there, is worth paying attention to. So who are you when nobody else is around? I think about this, and it's kind of fascinating because I think a lot of us, we don't fully know. Like, we know who we are in context, at work, at school, around friends, online. We know all those versions, but the baseline version, the one that exists before any of that, the one that's there at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday when you're just existing, living your life, what is that person actually like? What do they care about? What makes them laugh? What makes them cry at something they would never admit they cried at? What are they curious about? What do they actually enjoy? Not what do they enjoy posting about, what do they actually enjoy? And I think a lot of people, if they're honest, would say, I don't fully know. Because they've spent so long being the version of themselves that other people see that the private version got a little too quiet, a little underdeveloped, a little like, I haven't checked in with that part of myself in quite some time now. And it's not even about being fake. It's not that deep. It's just we're social creatures. We adapt, we adjust, we show different things to different people, and that's normal. But every now and then it's asking, underneath all the adaptation, underneath all the performance, underneath the version of you that exists only for other people, who is just you? What do you actually think about? What do you actually feel? What do you actually want your life to look like when you strip away every single external opinion about it? Because the person, the one underneath all that, that's the one worth listening to. That's the one whose opinion about your life matters the most. And I think for a lot of us, that voice has been pretty quiet for quite some time now. So I'm not here to tell you to delete every single social media and live in a cabin for the rest of your life. That's not the point. The point is to just check in. Like, genuinely check in with yourself every once in a while and ask the question, not in a crisis, not as like, oh no, am I really living authentically enough? Just as a simple and honest question. Is this actually what I want? Or am I doing this because of how it looks? Is this actually making me happy? Or does it just make a good story? Is this the direction I actually want to go in? Or am I following a script that someone else wrote for me a long time ago and I never really stopped to question it? And start doing stuff with no audience. Seriously. Pick up something you've been curious about and don't tell anyone about it for a while. Just let it be yours. Go somewhere by yourself. Make something that you don't post. Have an experience that lives only in your memory and not in your camera roll. Because there is something that happens when you do things with no audience. Even a small thing. You start to remember what it feels like to just want something for the sake of wanting it. Not for the outcome, not for the validation, just because it's yours. And that feeling, that's the thing worth chasing. That's what it feels like to actually live your life instead of just documenting it. So, what would you do if nobody was watching? I really want you to sit with that. Not right now necessarily, like you don't have to just pause the video here and have this whole little moment with yourself right now, but later, when you're by yourself and it's just quiet, just ask yourself that question, because I think the answer might surprise you. I think there's more there than you might expect, more things you want that you haven't let yourself want, more of a person underneath the performance that you've given yourself credit for. And you don't have to share it with anyone and everyone. You don't have to do anything with it immediately, just notice it. Get curious about it a little bit and start getting to know that version of yourself a little bit better. Because at the end of the day, the only person who has to live your life is you. You. And it would be kind of a shame to spend it performing for an audience that wasn't even really watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.